we started with reproduction, in which we have done asexual part. Okay, so the asexual part of reproduction is done, which includes the lower organisms and also the plants, in which it is known as vegetative propagation. So you might like to note down what all things you will get a backup class for. So how we will proceed is, today we are currently on, we will be finishing sexual reproduction in plants. Okay, so this is probably today is the last class to finish that. So when I'll finish this, so there are basically 3 topics majorly: asexual part in lower organisms, then asexual part in plants, which is known as vegetative propagation, right? You know that, all of you? So these are topics about which you have studied a little bit in your junior classes, but because this in 12th, you need to go into details, and these are important for both boards and entrances. So I'll be giving you backup for all these topics. Okay. So the last part of the sexual reproduction in plants, which includes formation of seed, I'll give you a brief summary, and I'll majorly focus on reproduction and production of fruits and seeds. So this topic you will study today, about fruits and seeds. Okay, everyone, all 3 of you.
Okay, sir. So
yes,
can I
Samson,
just rejoin the meeting again?
You can what?
Can I rejoin the meeting again?
Yes, you can. Yes. Okay. Is there an issue with your? Okay, let him come back. Okay, so Matthew and Samira. So today we'll be starting with this. Okay, and after I end the class, so basically each class is of 1.5 hours. Okay. After the class is over from 6:30 to 8. So you 3, let's just Samson come back. Just connecting to the audio. Yes, Samson, and I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Is it fine now?
Yes, sir. All good.
Okay, cool. So I was just telling that today we will start with fruits and seeds, which is almost the tail part of the sexual reproduction in plants. And when this class will over at 8, from 6:30 to 8, you will study with the batch. After 8, all 3 of you, Samson, Matthew, and Samira, will stay. Okay. And I'll give you the backup for the sexual reproduction in plants. Like I'll try to explain as much as I can in an additional 1 hour. You have to stay with me so that you come. This is to make you come to the same page as soon as we can. And for the rest of the 2 topics, we will have backup classes on the weekend, starting from like probably, if not this week, then in the coming week. Okay.
Sir,
yes, Samson.
I don't think I can stay for more than 1.5 hours.
Okay, you cannot stay today?
No, I cannot stay for more than 1.5 hours.
Okay, so we will figure out something for you then, like for these topics. But Matthew and Smira, will you stay?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good. So Samson, we'll see what we can do for you. If not this weekend, then probably in the coming week we will adjust some backup classes. Okay. For you. Yeah. Stay in touch with the operations team. Okay, and I'll also be talking to them. Okay. Anyway, so you understood that today, even if we are starting from here, and I think Samira and Samson already know it's for Matthew. So Matthew, the way I conduct these classes is that all the students whom I teach, many of them wants to become doctor, which is very obvious and very natural way. But a lot of the students like you want to become a clinical psychologist, someone wants to become a biotechnologist or a veterinary doctor. So the point is not just to understand biology from a limited perspective of the syllabus. Okay, it is to uncover the concepts to cover the syllabus. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
And the more you discuss, so my classes, there are just 2 rules, very simple. One, you have to be discussive. You have to bring in your doubts. You have to discuss things with me. And do not let me move forward unless and until you are thorough with that concept that we have picked up in that particular class to understand. Okay. Second thing is, even if there is some doubt or something you want to discuss which is not in your book or NCERT or not in your syllabus but is related to science or biology, you can bring it up in the class. We'll do that, because I often give examples and analogies which are not directly in the book but are very important.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
And second thing is, very quickly, that most of the students, like over in last few years while teaching, I realized that I used to face some problem with biology, that biology after a time become monotonous and boring because lots and lots of facts start accumulating which you have to remember. But if we only rely on our memorizing power to remember biology, it becomes very difficult. So in order to do that, what we do, we try to effectively break every concept into what and how. Okay. Now, in biology, most of the times, there are many words and terminologies that are repeated and are, if you understand the words of biology, some important technical words, it becomes easier to understand biology. Okay. So I will be telling you to write certain words as a terminology. So I will be discussing terminology with you. Okay. Which will help you to compile a mini biology dictionary for yourself by the end of this whole session. Okay. And the how part we will focus by discussing. Okay.
All right.
Clear, Samira, Samson, and Matthew?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, perfect. So I think your other batchmates have started joining in. Hello, Fatima. Fatima, am I audible to you?
Hello, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. You are very energized today. Okay, how are you?
I'm good,
How
sir.
should
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay. So let's start with this. Okay, everyone can see this screen that I have. I'm sharing now.
Yes, sir.
Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Myra and Samson? Yes, it's visible. Okay. So Fatima, you have some new batchmates. You would like to say hello to them? Samira, Samson, and Matthew.
Hello, friends. How are you?
You'll be fine.
Okay, so let's just wait a couple of more minutes for others to join. If you have any doubts, anything you want to ask me, anyone, you can ask in the meanwhile before we go to the syllabus, like technically. Fatima, where were we? Yes, we just finished monocot and dicot. We are on parts of seed. So let's do one thing. Starting from, let's not go to double fertilization yet. Okay. Fatima, would you like to give a brief recap of what we did in last class, starting from just the monocot, dicot plants and their seeds? That's all. What you can see on the board, starting from there. Would you like to give a brief recap?
So we learned about monocot.
Yes, what are those also? Like, I want you to give this recap for your fellow batchmates. Yes, please
So I
continue.
didn't revise.
You didn't revise? You should have revised.
I'm outside right now.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, let me give you the brief recap, everyone, by the time others are joining in. So we were studying, basically, how do we reach here is that we are studying sexual reproduction in flowering plants. And we all know that plants have both asexual and sexual modes of reproduction. And even in plants, if you remember from class 11th, there is one particular group of plants known as angiosperms. Remember angiosperms, Samira?
Yes, sir.
Yes, what are angiosperms?
Angiosperms includes plants with flowers.
Yes, so they are flowering plants. So not all plants flower, but those which flower are called angiosperms. Now, flower is a very, very interesting and evolved organ of a plant. And it is specifically evolved for the reason of sexual reproduction, because it produces the reproductive structures inside it, which is called stamen and carpel. And basically we were going through stages. So the first stage of sexual reproduction is pollination. So we went through pollination. We understood what pollination is, what are the types of pollination, about which I will give you a backup, don't worry. Then the second stage, so once pollination is done successfully, it means that the fertilization has to happen now, right? So the second stage is formation of zygote and embryo, in which we also discussed what is a zygote, what is an embryo, where are they present. And the third stage is the formation of seed and fruit, which is the final packaging, which comes out as the result of sexual reproduction in plants. So seed and fruits, starting from here. So we know that ovules are those structures which become seed later on. So ovules become seeds and ovary becomes fruit. And before we go to seed, I told that there are two types of plants from class 11. Again, it's something that we went back and discussed. Monocot plants, the word monocot comes from monocotyledon, which means a single cotyledon. Okay. And dicot plants have two cotyledons. Now, in order to understand what is a cotyledon, you all have seen a gram seed, right? A chana?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So if you see carefully a chana seed, which is a raw chana seed, which when it is green and tender, it can split into two. Even if it's roasted one, it can split into two very easily. So they are basically two halves together. But you won't be able to split the seed of a corn or rice, right? Into two.
Yes.
That's not possible. So those which have two cotyledons, like you can open it and you can see that there are two cotyledons, they are called dicotyledonous plants. Now gram is an example of dicot. So this is a seed, what it looks like. And sometimes when you put it in moisture or cotton or in water, it starts sprouting, right? So that sprout which comes out, you all have seen sprouted chana?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, Arpit is back. I can hear his voice. Hi, Arpit, how are you? Okay. So the sprout is actually nothing but the developing embryo, which is now growing and germinating. Okay. And the two parts are the cotyledon. And if you see the structure of a dicot, here I have just drawn a structure of a bean seed. So these are the two cotyledons. And what is filled in the cotyledon is endosperm. It is the nutritional tissue for the developing embryo. And the embryo is present along the length of the seed, just sandwiched between the two cotyledons. And this is what starts growing. So when you start, when the seed starts germinating, this thing starts coming out and forming leaves. And from the bottom, it starts forming the radicle or the roots. Is it clear? But yes, Arpit.
So the embryo is only present at that small region, or it is totally covered?
It is present throughout the length. So if you, that's why I have marked here that the whole length of the seed is the length of the embryo, but it is not present everywhere. It is present towards the center, sandwich between the two cotyledons, but it's not spread like a sheet. It is like a worm, more like a worm. Okay, you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes.
But it is present throughout the seed, but it's long. But a little complexity comes in monocot. Now, when a seed is monocot, clearly it cannot open into two cotyledons and it cannot have the orientation of an embryo sandwiched between the two cotyledons. So in this case, what happens is, interestingly, the seed has a different structural organization. The half of the seed actually is the endosperm. Okay. Because endosperm is the stored food for the embryo, and in every seed, there has to have three common structures: seed coat, endosperm, and the embryo. Seed coat to protect, endosperm to give nutrition, and embryo, which is the actual protagonist or the hero of the whole story. So that will grow into a new plant. So the upper part is covered by a alluron layer, and this alluron layer has endosperm inside it. So the one half of the seed is endosperm. The other half, which gives rise to the embryo, so this part is called scutellum. Okay. Inside, in the scutellum part, there is this embryo. So if you see, the size of the embryo is smaller than the seed. Okay. Whereas in case of dicots, the whole length of the seed is the length of the embryo. Is it clear? The difference is clear, everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So what is the function of the alluron layer?
Alluron layer is like it's like a protective layer that contains moisture and endosperm within it. Okay. And it has other functions about which we will study in detail. Like, I'm just giving a brief recap in today's
All
class.
right.
Okay. Yeah. So this is just the just 1 minute. Some people have joined. Let me admit them. Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
But the seed coat is not present in the monocot.
The seed coat is?
Is it present or not?
Seed coat. See, three things always have to be present in a seed, whether it is a monocot seed or a dicot seed. First thing is seed coat. Second thing is endosperm. And third thing is embryo. Okay. Because everything is happening to give rise to embryo. Embryo is the main. It's going to be the next plant, correct?
Yes, sir.
And whenever there is a living thing, it needs two additional services, protection and food. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So if embryo is there in the seed, both in monocot and dicot, the next thing will be endosperm for nutrition and seed coat for protection. Other structures like alluron layer, which is only present in monocot, not present in dicot, can be different. And there are some other structures like hypocotyle, about which we will study today. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after that, we started with the parts of seed. So the structure is, I think it's clear. So we started with the first part, which is seed coat. So those who have just joined today can just know that in seed coat also, it is for protection. And there are a few things that I'll start discussing now. Is the recap till now understood to everyone, especially the new students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll start
Yes.
with parts of seed again. Okay, let me see if everyone has joined. I think so. Okay. Okay, hello everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible to all of you, right? Alia, Arpit, Samson, Fatima,
Yes, sir.
Fatima Munir,
Yes, sir.
Matthew, Samaira, and Miraj.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with the class. Anyone has any doubts before I start? Anything you want to ask or discuss? Okay, then let's begin with parts of seed. Now, as I was telling you, seed is the most important thing that for which the plant did everything complex in order to do sexual reproduction. It produced flowers, it did pollination, it underwent the process of attracting the pollinators either by smell, like scent, or by providing nectar, which is sweet in taste. So whatever ways a plant had to follow, it did that just to, in the end, produce seed. Even fruits, which are like in which the seeds are present. So fruits are a very good structure because see, fruits are nutritious, yes?
Yes.
And why is a plant producing fruit? There are two reasons. Like now the reasons are not from plant's perspective, but the reasons are what it serves in biology, in nature. First thing is fruit is a reserved food source, right?
Yes, sir.
So whatever food plant has produced in bulk, it will just store all that in the fruit. So it's very nutritious. Second thing is animals which cannot synthesize their own food, like plants, will feed on these fruits, right? So we are kind of consumers. In nature, plants are the primary producers and we are consumers. Animals are consumers. So either animals consume other animals or they consume plants. In both the cases, we get the food from some other source. We cannot produce it on our own. So we will hunt for the fruits, right?
Yes.
Now it is a
will
very,
find it.
yes, right. So now it is a very intelligent way where if the seeds are inside the fruit, so the moment an animal hunts for a fruit, eats the fruit, and the seed has a seed coat, it's a hard covering. So even if it eats the seed, if you eat a seed, you will not be able to digest it. And seeds can be excreted out from an animal system as it is. You know that? That's why that is how plants propagate. So the main thing is they are giving you fruit as a bait. All they want from animals is to spread their seeds wherever they can. Okay, they have other ways also. Like how many of you have seen dandelion?
Yeah. Through
Yes,
wind,
sir.
right? They propagate through wind.
Yes. So dandelion is that it is white feather-like thing, and then you blow into it, all the seeds just go into the air and disperse. So
Yes,
there,
sir.
yes. So there the seeds are all attached to a like this kind of a structure. So these are all seeds attached, and these seeds have feathery attachments, right? It's like this. So the moment you blow into it, all the seeds get airborne, and they can go a very long distance because they are very light and they have feather-like attachments to it, so that wind can carry it. Okay. So there are other ways to spread the seed. One way is to put it in fruit, and this is to spread it naked without a fruit. Now we will be talking about seeds. So first thing is seed coat. I'll just go through it over again. So seed coat is very important. It's not just for protection. So first thing, write down. So I'll be dictating you things. Okay, everyone, those who are new, for your boards. And for the entrances, I'll be telling you that this is the question which has already come, or this is the potential question that can be asked. So you have to keep writing all these things. So the first thing is write down seed coat protects the embryo
So
inside.
we wrote about seed coat.
Sir, you already made us write this.
Yes, we did. I'm just going. Okay, so let's do one thing. Arpit, would you like to just tell what we have written about the seed coat as a
Yes, sir.
dictation one by one? Yes, just go on. I just want Matthew, Myra, and Samson to note it down. Yes, please.
Sir, seed coat, it protects internal parts of the seed.
Yes.
Sir, it has
So just
two
one
layers.
sentence at a time, and let me allow me to elaborate it. So first thing is very clear. Seed coat protects the internal parts of the seed. Okay, that is the first point. And I hope all three of you are writing. Okay, Matthew, Samira, and Samson.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Yes, sir.
What was the next point, Arpit?
Sir, it has two layers, that is outer thick layer and inner thin layer. Sir, outer thick layer is known as testa and inner thin layer is known as tegmen.
Yes. So it has two layers. See, it's just a basic logic that in biology you will always see whenever something is multi-layered, the outer layer is mostly thick. Okay. Either both are equal or the outer layer is thick, because outer layer has to do most of the protection. Then the inner layer, along with protection, it also plays a supportive or a connective role, because whatever is inside has to be protected from whatever is outside the environment. So testa, which is the outer thick layer, does this, and tegmen, which is the inner thin layer, helps the testa in protection, and it also makes connections with the internal structures of the seed. Okay, next. Arpit.
Seed coat also prevents loss of water and that prevents parasites from entering into the seed.
Yes, it prevents loss of water, which means it prevents the seed from dehydrating completely. Because what is inside the seed? See, inside the seed, there is endosperm and embryo, right? All these are living structures, correct, Matthew?
Yes.
And if they are living structures, they must be having cells. And if they have cells, they must be having cytoplasm in that cell, which is almost 90% of water, right? So a lot of moisture and nutrition is trapped inside. If you allow everything to just dehydrate, then embryo will die, endosperm will die, and all the living things inside will die, which is like the case of a roasted chana. So everything inside is dead. Okay. So seed coat prevents that loss of water from inside to out. Okay. And also it prevents entry of parasites from outside to in. Okay. Next, Arpit.
So the seed coat also prevents embryo from germinating during unfavorable conditions.
Yes. So apart from just being a physical barrier, it also helps and talks with the embryo. So embryo does not know when to come out. Embryo is very inside, and the moment you will, the moment moisture or water will reach the embryo will think that it has to come out. So the seed coat, it actually protects or prevents the embryo from coming out prematurely or during an unfavorable condition. So the first outermost layer tells the innermost embryo somehow, let's see, this is not the right time to come out. I will tell you when to come out. So it also prevents the embryo to emerge prematurely under unfavorable conditions. Otherwise, that seed is a waste. Embryo will come out in a harsh environment and will die, right? Make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Next, Arpit.
So, hilum is a small opening that is present.
Yes.
Hilum is a small opening towards microphylla.
Yes. So this is an entrance question. That's why I asked you to write this. So there is a structure called hilum. It is a small pore, small opening in the seed. Okay. And it is small opening towards the micropylar end. Now just write down this thing, micropylar. Even if you do not understand it, it's okay. You will understand during the backup. Okay. So there are two ends of a seed. Just like if anyone, there are two ends of a cricket pitch, right? Similarly, there are two ends of a seed. And one end is called micropylar end. And how these ends are named, I'll tell you that later. But there is a small opening towards the micropylar end, which is called hilum. And this has been asked in entrances because hilum is an equivalent structure to navel in humans. The navel is the belly button, right? Where the umbilical cord was attached when we were an embryo inside our mother's womb. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So when we talk about equivalent organs, it's with respect to the structure or function. So here hilum in a seed is equivalent to navel in a human embryo. So this has been asked once. Okay. Okay. I think this was the last, right, Arpit?
Yes, sir. And the point.
Yes, and I told you that today we'll be talking about the other two parts, endosperm and embryo. So let's first talk about the endosperm, seed coat. Then the second part of a seed is endosperm. There is a S here. Okay. Now write down the endosperm is the nutritive tissue. The endosperm is the nutritive tissue which provide nutrients to the developing embryo. Which provide nutrients to the developing embryo. And endosperm is a triploid structure, okay? It is a triploid tissue. Now again, if you do not understand ploidy, no problem. Just know that it is triploid. We write it as 3N. Rest everything, embryo is diploid, all the other tissues are diploid, gametes are haploid, okay, but endosperm is triploid. And the major nutrients that endosperm contains is starch, which is a carbohydrate. You all know starch? Starch, cellulose, there are two forms of carbohydrates, correct?
Yes, sir.
So starch and proteins, the major nutrients present in the endosperm are starch, proteins, and then they have some minor lipids. Minor means not in that much of concentration, but they have lipids also. But starch and protein is major. Now it makes sense why starch and protein is required in a lot, in larger quantity, because starch is the energy fuel, right? It's the fuel for energy in any cell. Remember the process of respiration, class 11th, everyone?
Yes, sir.
What do we burn during respiration in our cells? Glucose. So glucose is the fuel which we are oxidizing with the help of oxygen. So it's like burning. Okay. And when we are doing that, we are producing CO2 and lots of energy. So glucose is a carbohydrate, right?
Yes, sir.
Similarly, starch or cellulose, they are all carbohydrates. Now, so this is important in large quantity because when a plant is developing, it is doing lots and lots of activities, cell division, growth, and making different structures. So it needs energy. Second thing is protein, because you know that our body is made up of protein. Our cells, protein or amino acids by which proteins are made. You have studied in junior classes that amino acids are known as building blocks of the cell, right? Amino acid and proteins, they are the building blocks. So we need the building block, we need the energy. That's why they are the major things. Another interesting thing about endosperm is all the seeds. Let me ask you this question like this because it was asked in boards. It is a board question. So rice and let's say dal. You know what is dal? Pulses. Everyone understands dal?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What is rice a very good source of? That you have studied from very junior classes. We know that rice is a good source of what?
Carbohydrates.
Perfect. Carbohydrate, or we call it starch. Yes. Okay. What are dals a very good source of?
Proteins.
Proteins. But both rice and dal are nothing but seeds, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then why one is a major source of starch and other is a major source of protein? And in dal you will find starch which is less in amount, and in rice like protein is there. So there are many rice varieties which are grown now which are genetically modified and are high yielding varieties, HYV seeds, which also give you protein. But what happens to the starch in dal? Where did all that starch go? Because both are seeds. So sometimes what happens is in seeds like dal, like all the pulses, gram, bean, they all are good source of protein because the starch component is used up for the development of the embryo. It's already used up. And what's left majorly is protein. Is it clear? That's why dal stays a good source of protein, whereas rice is a good source of starch. Okay, everyone? In this, the starch component is not used up. Understood the reason behind it, the logic? So
Sir, can you
Yes,
explain
sir.
once again?
yes. So some seeds like dal and beans are good source of protein. So in a seed, there is an endosperm, and that endosperm contains starch. Now in seeds like dal and beans, that starch component is used up. You can write down in seeds of dal and beans, the endosperm containing starch, gets used up early for the development of embryo. Okay, that's why these seeds are a good source of proteins, which is left in the seeds. Okay, clear? Just wanted to
Excuse me, sir.
let. Yes, please. Yes, is it
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Someone said, excuse me.
Yes.
Any question? Yes, any question?
Sir, I was asking that, sir, rice do not require anything for development.
What?
Sir, rice does not require anything for its development?
Yes, right does. So I'm telling you that rice, the point is when the seed is made, and inside that seed, rice is a monocot. Inside that seed, that small embryo is present, right? So all the starch does not get used up by the time we are actually using rice for our food. It's just that you are getting rice at a different stage and beans and dals at a different stage. Okay.
Okay.
So ultimately, like if you just allow the rice plant to just be there and be there naturally, the point is we never cultivate rice because we want to cultivate rice. We want it for food, right? It is a food grain. So we will harvest it at the right time. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
We will not allow that seed to go disperse and develop into embryo. We do not want that to happen. We want that seeds, all those grains for us to eat. We will next season again grow rice. So the starch component is there. It is not used up because it's not germinating. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Every embryo requires starch and protein both. But in dal and or pulses, when we eat dal, like by that time, if you see that you keep dal in any moisture or you keep beans or gram in any moisture driven cloth or any wet cloth or in water, they just sprout within hours. Within, like in one night, they will sprout, right? In few hours. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Which already tells that the embryo is very well developed inside. It just needs to germinate now. Yes? Will a rice start sprouting if you put that rice in water?
No.
No. So you understood why there is still starch in rice present, whereas the dal has all the starch gone? Because in dal seeds or in bean seeds, the embryo is developed. In rice seed, the embryo is not developed at all. It has barely used anything. Okay? Arpit?
Yes, sir.
Yes, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So write down the next thing about endosperms. The endosperm supports the embryo during germination. The endosperm supports the embryo during germination when it cannot photosynthesize, when it is not able to photosynthesize. So you will see, if you have seen a sprouting seed, what is the color of the sprouts that come out of, let's say, moong dal or any dal, whatever sprouts you have given?
White or yellow.
Yes, they are whitish. Are they green? They become green after
No.
some time, but they are not green when they are coming out. Yes. And if they are not green, they do not have chlorophyll. And if they do not have chlorophyll, that part cannot photosynthesize. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And the same is true for the developing seed. So when the seed starts germinating, the first radicle and plumule which come out, forming the roots and the shoot, is not having chlorophyll. It does not have much of a chlorophyll. After few days, it can start photosynthesizing a bit, but before that, it has to stay alive, and all that nutrition is provided by endosperm. Okay. Now write down. In monocot seeds like corn, in monocot seeds like corn and other cereals. In cereals comes your jawar, bajra, rice. Okay. So in monocot seeds like corn and other cereals, endosperm constitutes the major part of the seed. So these seeds have lots of moisture trapped inside with the aleurone layer. Now, that's why we can make a popcorn. The moment you put a corn seed on heat, it starts getting heated from inside also, right? And inside, there is lots of moisture and water. So it will pop. Do you understand why it pops? The same thing happens with rice seeds also, or wheat seeds also, if you put them in heat. So for just like popcorn, you can also pop rice seeds. Anyone has had that? I think in the northern part of the India, we call it rice bhuja. You put rice in a sand, heated sand, and then they pop like popcorns, small white things. Anyone has had it or seen it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Fatima? Yes. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had it.
You put
Yes,
any
sir.
cereal, any monocot in a heated sand, it will pop. Okay? Because it has lots of moisture inside, because the endosperm is the major portion of the seed. And one question that has come on endosperms is about coconut. So do you know that the liquid part of a coconut, the coconut water, is actually not water. It is a liquid endosperm.
Yeah, nuclei. Yes, that is what we drink.
Yes? Someone said something, right? Was it?
They are free nuclei, sir.
Yes, Mehraj, perfect. So they are free nuclei. Nuclei means they are just containing, so the liquid itself is endosperm, and inside that endosperm, inside that liquid, the free nuclei is just floating around. So that whole liquid part is nutritive. That's why coconut water is suggested to patients or someone who's not well, who's sick. Coconut water always helps. Even to a healthy person, drinking coconut water is a good source of energy and nutrition. Now, over time, this liquid part starts solidifying, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And it solidifies and becomes the white pulp that we eat. White pulpy part of coconut, right? So
Yes,
this
sir.
white pulpy part is also endosperm. It is solidified, that liquid which gets solidified over time. So what we eat is actually the endosperm. So if I ask you, in a coconut, where is the seed and where is the fruit? Any idea?
The coconut itself is a seed, right?
Coconut itself is a seed. Perfect. So that hard thing is the seed coat, which we break. Okay. The hard outer part is the seed coat, which we are breaking. Inside that is endosperm. Yes. Then where is the fruit? Where's the fruit? Where is the ovary? Because the seed is made from ovule. So we know that coconut itself at one point of time was an ovule, which became seed. It has a liquid endosperm. So where is that ovary or the fruit? Because ovary becomes fruit, right? So that husk part. So if you see a coconut, in a green coconut, what is the green thing? When it gets ripened, that outer part becomes husky, right? You can just peel it. And inside there is a seed, this hard seed coat. And inside that there is a water, right? Or the white part. Do you understand? So the thing which we peel, sometimes it's also called as coir, and people make mattresses with coconut husk. It's called coir mattress. Any idea?
Yes. And you also use it for ropes.
Yes, right. It also used for rope. So that part actually was the fruit. So it's not edible. We cannot eat that part. It's ripened, but it's so ripened that it dries off. Even when it is green, you cannot eat it because it's not good in taste. So we only eat the endosperm, okay, of the coconut. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So remember this. And I think that's all about endosperm for now. Let's come to the most important part of the seed, which is an embryo. And we'll spend some time here in embryo. Now, just taking you a little up, everyone. There is something called double fertilization. Remember, in plants.
Yes, sir.
So in plants, there are two fertilization events which takes place at the same, like in the same female structure. So there are two male nucleus, you all know. The generative cell divides and forms two male nucleus. The first male nucleus fuses with the egg cell inside the embryo sac and makes a zygote that develops into embryo. This is what we are going to study now. The second male nucleus, that's why, so male nucleus is haploid, egg cell is also haploid, then the zygote becomes diploid after fusion. The second male nucleus fused with the polar nuclei. These are two nuclei, N and N. So there are two N. So N plus 2N becomes 3N, okay? So the second nuclei gives rise to endosperm, which provides nutrition, about which we studied just now. Do you understand? The double fertilization?
Yes, sir.
And the second event where three total nuclei are fusing is called a triple fusion event. Triple fusion means there are three nuclei fusing together. Two nuclei of the polar cell and one nuclei of the male pollen. That's why the formation of endosperm is called triple fusion. And both these two fertilizations happen together. So the whole process is called double fertilization. So now I'm going to talk about the embryo. Now embryo is the most important thing very clearly because this is going to be the next plant. And embryo, write down, start writing some points. Embryo is the most important part of the seed. Embryo is the most important part of the seed. It is diploid. It is diploid, which means it has two copies of its genome. One came from the male nucleus, one came from the egg cell. And then embryo, write down. Embryo has the following parts. So there are parts of embryo also. Because embryo is going to give rise to all the different structures, right? See, when there are two gametes, pay attention here. When there are two gametes, one is the male gamete, one is the female gamete. And the function of both the gametes is to bring one copy of genome from the father and the mother. Yes? Yes or no? That's the only function. So it's a unicellular thing with genome, with DNA inside. Yes or no? Simple. Everyone understands?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The moment it fertilizes, after that it becomes one single cell, which is called zygote. It is again one single cell, but what has been achieved is one step at a time. So the fusion has achieved. The male and female nucleus has fused and both the genes have come together now. But still it is one cell. After zygote becomes embryo. So embryo is a multicellular structure. Yes?
Yes, sir.
And the moment it starts becoming multicellular, it also has to ensure that different subparts or different subpopulation of cells inside that embryo will now go on and give rise to different structures, different biological structures, tissues, organs, etc. Yes. So that's why embryo has different parts. So first part of the embryo is epicotyl. Epicotyl. What does the word epi means? Again, now terminology. The word epi, anywhere in biology when the word epi comes, what does it mean? Epidermis, epicotyl,
Internal.
epigenetics.
Does it mean first?
Does it mean?
First. Does it mean the first?
Yes, you're around, but it means the outermost or on top, the topmost or above something. You understand? Epidermis is the outermost layer of our dermis, of our skin. So all our skin is actually has the outermost layer, which is dead, and that's called epidermis. Okay. Then comes like endoderm, mesoderm, all these are inside, but epi is on the outside. So epi is above or on top, right? And the word cotyle is for cotyledons. Yes. So in an embryo, let's come here. So do you see an embryo here? So in a this is the cotyledon. Okay. In this case, scutellum is the cotyledon here. On the top of cotyledon, this is the embryo. So that embryo will have first out, which is on the top. The top part is called epicotyle. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So write down what is epicotyle and what does it do. Write down epicotyle is a small shoot. Because it's on the top, it will go up, penetrating the soil, it will emerge outside and it will form the shoot. So it is the small shoot of the embryo. It is the small shoot of the embryo which will give rise to the entire plant shoot system eventually, which will give rise. So this is asked in entrances. What does epicotyle give rise to? So epicotyle give rise to entire shoot system. And the shoot system contains what makes the shoot? Stem, branches, leaves, fruits, flowers, buds, whatever is outside the ground. Okay, it's called shoot. So for all those structures, the tissue which was responsible in the embryonic stage for a plant is epicotyle. Okay, name epi means above, so it will be easier for you to remember. Second thing, so this is first part of the embryo. Not a major issue, right? Easy to remember.
Yes.
Second is hypocotyle. Now I think this you can tell me. What does the word hypo means? Hypotonic solution, hypertonic solution, isotonic solution. Hypothermia, hypotension, hypotenuse. What does the word hypo means? Everywhere
It's
hypo
like
means
low, right? Low or like below.
Yes, Matthew. Perfect. Hypo means low. Write it in your terminology section. In science, wherever the word hypo comes, it means low. It's easy to remember because both hypo and low has a O. They sound similar. Hypo, low. And the word hyper, hypertension, hyperthermia, hypertonic means high. It already says hyper. Okay. You must have seen people communicating saying don't get hyper, right? So it comes from hypo and hyper. So if it's hypocotyle, where is that structure?
It's below the cotyledon.
Yes. Like if epicotyle is above the level of cotyledon, hypocotyle is below the level of cotyledon. So this part here, lower part will become hypocotyle somewhere here. Okay. Now what does hypocotyle do? Because it's lower, so technically what should it give rise to? It cannot give rise to shoot, right?
Root.
Due to the root.
Yes.
Rise to the root.
Yes, but here is a twist. Now hypocotyle does not form the entire root system, but yes, it is the primary root. It is the first thing. So hypocotyle is the first part of embryo that comes out of the seed. Now this is interesting. This is interesting because a seed, whenever we put the seed in the soil, the first thing that is more important for that seed is to anchor itself firmly in the soil, right? Because we just put the soil in the seed in any orientation, anyway, right? But you will see all the seeds, whether they are put in any orientation, upside down, any orientation, always the shoots come up and the root goes down, right?
Yes.
Yes. So the beginning of that signaling starts with hypocotyle. So write down, hypocotyle is the first tissue that emerges. Hypocotyle is the first tissue that emerges out of the seed during germination. Out of the seed during germination. Next point. It is also called as primary root. So sometimes this tissue is known as the primary root, the first root that came out. And it anchors the plant firmly in the soil. It anchors the plant. So first important thing is anchoring. Then comes epicotyl and give rise to shoot. Because if you do not have a proper anchor and stability in the soil, you would not like to, give rise to your shoot system. Yes or no? It's simple, no? Makes sense. So biology is all about just common sense. If you can apply common sense, that is how life is surviving. No life could have survived without a common, basic, fundamental sense or logic. So it anchors the plant firmly in the soil. Then these two parts, this part, epicotyl, in some books, they also write this part as plumule. In a sprouting chana, remember I told you there is a primule which comes out and a radicle. So plumule gives rise to shoot and radicle gives rise to root. Okay, so the third part is radicle. Now you already know radicle is a small embryonic root. Radicle is a small embryonic root which eventually gives rise small embryonic root. Now, if in lower classes when you used to draw plant, remember this is the stem, then you used to draw one major root and then there are many roots, right?
Yes.
So this is the primary root which comes out of hypocotyl, okay? And the only job of primary root is to go deep and anchor the plant. Then the other roots, the whole root network, which goes everywhere in every direction in search of nutrient and water, are the secondary roots. Is it clear?
Yes.
Sir.
Yes. So this is radicle, which gives rise to all that extensions. So it's the small embryonic root which eventually gives rise to the elaborate root network. To the elaborate root network of the plant or root system of the plant. Root system. And the fourth important part of the embryo is Cotyledon. So this we have already studied. So Cotyledon and endosperm are different, but endosperm is present inside the cotyledons. Do you understand? Endosperm, when we study endosperm, we are talking about that tissue which is nutritive. And cotyledons are the two structures. Like see here. So this structure is cotyledon, okay? But what is filled inside is endosperm. Is it clear?
Yes.
Here also, this structure is cotyledon. It's monocot. So write down the fourth important part of the embryo. In every embryo has to be cotyledon. Write down. Cotyledon contains endosperm for nourishment of the embryo. And oftentimes, if you have germinated any seed yourself, especially anyone has germinated a mango sapling or a bean, or have you seen the video of they germinating out of the soil? So you will see the first thing that comes out of the ground is something shaped like this, which comes out of the ground, right? And then after some time, it opens as like two parts with a bud, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
They look like leaf, but they are not leaf. They are cotyledons. So they come out and open. And then from between this part, which is the meristematic part, this grows, and then later on the first real leaf will be formed. Okay, and the plant will keep developing. But this first thing that comes out and open as a leaf is not a leaf, it is cotyledon. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so write down. It emerges out as tiny fleshy leaf-like structures. Fleshy because they are filled with nutritive tissue called endosperm. So tiny fleshy leaf-like structures.
Sir, can you repeat from the mango being put into the soil?
Yes, so you just popped out or what?
Yeah, the battery was completely low.
Okay. I was just saying that if anyone has planted a mango sapling or have seen a bean seed germinating from soil, then you will see that the first thing that happens is, the first thing that comes out of the ground is a small tender green stem with this structure. Then this structure opens into two. So it looks like the first seed, the first leaf, but they are not leaf, they are cotyledons. This is what I was telling. Okay, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
They are fleshy, filled with nutritive tissue, and they open, and from there the plant keeps growing and starts forming the real leaves after that. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, and they are also known as embryonic leaf. So wherever the word embryonic leaf is used, it is used for cotyledons, which is not a true leaf. It is not a leaf-like structure. Okay, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the end of the three parts of the seed: embryo, endosperm, and seed coat, and everything associated with it. And now we have half an hour, but I would like to do two things in this half an hour. So this is where we will end, like the syllabus in NCERT ends for sexual reproduction and flowering plants, but there are a lot of things yet to be studied and understood for entrances. Now, some of those things we will discuss today, and from the next class, which is tomorrow, I will start with the human reproduction, like in the normal classes. Okay. One thing that you should know about is a process called apomexis. Anyone has heard this term, apomexis, in plants? I don't know if it's in, I don't think it's in NCERT, but it's very, very important, a concept from entrance point of view, all the entrances. So write down what is apomexis. In short, if I just tell you in one tagline, remember I told you that, oh, we have not discussed fruit yet. Okay. Let me first go to, okay, let me take apomexis here because it's about seed. So seed can only be formed after sexual reproduction. Say yes or no? Yes. Apomexis is an exception of that process. Apomexis is simply, in one tagline, it is the seed produced without sexual reproduction. Now, does it make sense to you that a seed can be produced without sexual reproduction?
No.
No? Let's suppose it is producing a seed. If a seed is produced without sexual reproduction, which means without fusion of male and female nucleus, without fusion of pollen and ovule, will that seed have genetic variation?
No, not at all.
No. Yes, not at all. So basically, apomexis is a type of complicated but asexual mode only, right? So you are plant is doing all that thing, making seed and everything, but ultimately that is just asexual reproduction, because the seed is not formed as a result of fusion of gametes. Then what it is formed by? So let's study this. So write down, define apomexis. It has also been asked in boards, by the way, but I don't know why it's not in NCERT.
It's there in NCERT. It's the last
It is there?
topic.
Oh,
yeah.
then good. So write down, apomexis is a process happening in flowering plants. It only happens in angiosperms, okay? Happening in flowering plants, where a seed is formed asexually. A seed is formed asexually from the maternal tissues of the ovule. From the maternal tissue of the ovule. Now, ovule is involved, which means, yes, ovule forms seeds. But the point is, ovule contains egg cell, which is haploid. But after apomexis, the seed that is formed is not haploid. So what happened here? What do you think must have happened? You still need to fuse something with the egg cell to make it diploid, right? But if you are not fusing male cell, then it is not sexual reproduction. So clearly, the female tissue, some or the other female tissue itself, is acting as a factor to make this ovule develop into a seed. So it becomes diploid, but it is just the female tissue only. So the genetic remains the same. It is just like a vegetatively propagated plant, or it is just like, what can we say? Fragmentation or budding in lower organisms, okay? Other asexual modes. So write down, in apomexis, the process of meiosis or fertilization is avoided or is not present. So no meiosis takes place and no fertilization takes place. But still there is a seed formation. And apomytic seed or the seed developed through apomexis. The interesting part is this seed also develops into an embryo. Now, this is where plants become very, very interesting model systems. If I ask you, okay, let's take one step out of this whole scenario. Let's talk about the natural world. If I ask you which organism the planet Earth belongs to, which is the most dominant living form on the Earth that dominates everything?
I mean, there really isn't one, because in every aspect you see there is a different dominant creature.
No, but in every ecology, if you go into deep, there is actually one over time. If you just take niche, so there is something called niche. Niche is a very localized region in which you are saying. So if I say which is the most dominant species in a pond, probably you will say bacteria or some other crustaceans. Or if I say which is the most dominant species in a in a grassland, you will say a cheetah or the apex predator. But it's not, domination is not only because of fierceness or able to hunt or predate. Domination in the sense where they have been able to survive. So those are plants. Like there are all different sorts of plants, but you will find plants in almost every ecosystem playing a very, very major role. So so for animals, plants provide shelter. Yes or no?
Yes, yeah.
If you go to rainforests, plants are so dense that they provide shelter, and they actually, so the problem with we cutting down trees, deforestation is a real problem for ecology and ecosystem, because no ecosystem would survive without plants, and they are very successful. Even though they cannot move, they cannot locomote from one place to another to protect themselves or to find a mate. For animal, it becomes little easier because animals can do all sorts of movement related things. They can fight, they can predate, they can hunt, they can find mates, they can move from a problematic, unfavorable condition to a favorable condition. But plants has to find other ways. They have to find ways by which, if they are dying, they ensure that their seeds or other spores or other structures are propagated. So in a way, and how many of you know that plants are very good? There are certain plants that actually stores nanoparticle of gold and silver in their cells. So there are certain plants which on purpose starts accumulating gold and silver nanoparticles in their cells through their roots.
How though?
How? Yes. So you have studied roots in class 11th? Nanoparticles means they are on the scale of nanometers, right? They are very, very small. Gold and silver nanoparticles are good for immunity. You know that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So no one of you has heard of this concept of there's one thing called Chawanprash. Anyone has heard of Chawanprash? What is a Chawanprash? It tastes
a thick paste.
It's a thick paste. What is it a paste of?
Amla.
Medicinal herbs, right? Basically herbs. So you put everything that tastes bad but is good for your body in one box and make a paste of it and call it Chawanprash. It has amla and whatnot, all the things mentioned in Ayurveda which are good for your tulsi and all these things. But you will be seeing nowadays the advertisements for them, they have started saying that this contains gold and silver nanoparticles. This Chawanprash contains gold nanoparticles to boost your immunity. You read of these things? No. You don't pay attention to advertisements. Yes. Yes.
They do.
How is that possible? Like why are they putting gold?
No one have had mithai with silver coating on it?
Sir, yes, sir. Barfi, sir.
Both of them are there in food.
Yes, in authentic Kaju Katli, which will cost a dime, but they are authentic, will have a silver coating on it. We have been eating silver from a very long time in our mithais. And even there are gold coated mithais also, which will be like even more expensive, but we eat it, you know?
Those are actual gold and silver?
Yes. What do you think? What did you thought?
I thought it was just colored like.
Yes. So most of the time it is that only because, it will look very bland without that. But the concept actually came from that it's a very, very thin, fine nanoparticle sheet of silver. So it's a coating of silver and it's edible. We can eat it. We actually eat all the metals. Don't we eat iron?
Yeah.
Now we do not go and get a iron rod and start chewing it. How do we eat iron, Arpit?
Tablets.
You eat iron as tablets?
Yeah, for like, no,
You
some
have
people do. Some people do for like hemoglobin.
All of us do it for hemoglobin, Matthew.
Yeah,
all our
I
hemoglobins.
know, yeah. But,
yes, all our hemoglobins has a core of iron. So where did that iron came from? They are also molecules of iron, right?
Yes.
and it came through spinach. So spinach contains iron. Yes, and iron is a metal, an element. So we are not surprised. Okay, from our childhood we are hearing that spinach contains iron. You should eat spinach. Who likes spinach here? Who's a Popeye fan? You know that cartoon Popeye, the Sailor Man, was actually
Yes, he
yes,
gets
it
his
was
powers from.
actually to yes, it was actually to inculcate a habit of kids in Western countries so that they eat their greens, they eat the spinach, they start liking it. You know, because as kids, when we see our superheroes are doing something, we like to do that. So they made a superhero who gets his power from spinach. So spinach is very important because it's a source of iron, and there are many sources of iron in nature, but we should eat. So we do take iron inside, and then on a molecular scale, we use it to make our hemoglobin core. Similarly, we need magnesium, and magnesium acts as a cofactor for many of our enzymes in the body. But magnesium we do not eat like magnesium again is a metal, right? Copper, magnesium, iron, silver, gold, they all have various roles in our physiology, in cell physiology. So silver and gold is good for immunity. They are immunity boosters as nanoparticles. Okay, now plants also realize that, and they can store. So there are certain trees in the world. There are species of trees which are like 20, 30 feet long and big trees, very heavy. And if you measure the weight of gold that whole tree is having as nanoparticles in each and every cell, so from one tree you can get up to like 100 to 200 grams of gold, which is a lot, right? 10-gram gold is like
a lot.
yes,
you'll actually make a proper necklace with it.
Exactly, you can actually make, but the point is we can never get it out because they are in the form of nanoparticles. Okay, nanoparticle is a very interesting technology. Anyone who's interested in going into, and in medicine field also, in medicinal field also, there are many nanotechnology based therapies that are done for disorders of immune system. Okay, you would like to check on that. Anyways, so apomexis is clear. It's a seed that's developed without sexual reproduction. So it is like a asexually produced seed, correct? Now, what is the advantage of apomexis? Can anyone think? What is the reason why a plant undergoes apomexis? Any idea? People, just think logically.
No wastage of energy.
But you are, no? Aren't you wasting energy? See, you are doing everything that if you would have done in the right context, it would have been a sexual reproduction and you would have made a sexually reproduced embryo. But here you are making a asexually reproduced embryo. You are making seed, you are making embryo. But
this is pure.
Yes. Yes. What? It is fewer. You say.
Pure.
Which means it happens in very few plants.
No. Like
then?
It doesn't have both the gametes.
Yes, it does not have both the gametes, but I'm asking that what do you think is the benefit of doing this? See, whenever, same, if I'll ask you, biology is all about logic. Whatever difficulties we face in our real life, and when we try to find a solution for it, biology does the same in natural world. You want to have a Louis Vuitton bag or a Rado watch, but you cannot have it because it's very expensive, let's say. Energy wise, that's also very expensive, and currency wise, that's also expensive. But still, if you want to have something like that, what can you have? There's something called first copy of everything.
Yeah.
Why do we make first copies?
To sell it for a cheaper price.
Exactly, to find a way to like carry the same thing, not same like exactly quality wise, I'm not talking about that, but carry the similar thing with a very cheaper, like we are solving a problem here, correct? So that everyone can have a Ray-Ban glass and everyone can have a Nike shoe, or everyone can have something very very currency expensive. In Apomexis, many plants and many species, basically, which are perennial. You know what are perennial species?
Yes, sir.
What are perennial? Yes, Arpit, please.
Because during the no, sir, I don't know.
Sorry, could not hear you.
Sir, I'm not sure, sir.
Annual, biennial, perennial, these terms. This you have done in lower classes, people. So I will not allow you to keep forgetting what you. Okay, so write down a homework. This is an in-class homework that you have to do today. You have to go back and revise annual, biennial, perennial plants.
Okay. Annual plants are plants that have like a year's lifespan.
No, that's not about lifespan.
Okay, then.
That's more about, so life cycle and lifespan we have discussed. I think Matthew, because you were not there, but we'll do it again in backup classes. But just go and brush it up, okay?
Okay.
We will use it. Okay, so this is one thing that you have to do. Second thing, I'm giving this you as a homework. Advantage, because it's when you will figure it out, the moment you will get to read this, you will understand, oh yeah, simple, this is the logic. That's why a plant is faking a sexual reproduction and making a fake seed. So advantage of Apomexis. You have to not submit, you do not have to submit it. So those are different assignments that you have to solve and submit to the Learnivio portal. This you have to do and come to before you come tomorrow, okay? This I will discuss in class. Understood, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once you will come with this, I will quickly discuss with you the mechanism of Apomexis. The mechanism is not very different from the sexual reproduction, but mechanism of Apomexis has slight deviations. So this part we will discuss then. So write down these three parts. Let me know when you're done.
Yes, sir.
Done?
Yes, sir.
One is writing something in the chat. Fatima is saying done. Okay, Fatima. Now, let's talk about fruit. Finish it. So what is a fruit, people?
The
Fruit,
product of the fertilization.
that is seed and embryo. Fruit is never the product of fertilization, because there are seeds, there are plants that produce naked seeds. Remember bryophytes? Sorry, gymnosperms, angiosperms and gymnosperms. The
Yes.
two gymnosperms produce naked seeds.
The product of the flower.
The fruits are modified ovaries.
Ripened ovaries.
Ripened ovaries.
Yes. So you can use ripened ovary as a statement. So the ovary, after everything is done, after fertilization is done, zygote is formed, embryo is formed, the seed is formed, endosperm is there, everyone is happy. Ovary is like, okay, the job is done, let me get ripened and become a fruit. I'm so happy that I want to get ripened. So ovary swells, gets ripened and becomes fruit. So every fruit that is a ripened ovary is known as a true fruit. Actually, true fruit is not a word, because every fruit is a true fruit. It's just like saying true sunlight. We can say something is false sunlight, which is mimicking the sunlight like a floodlight, but sunlight is sunlight, right? Similarly, fruit is fruit, and fruit is a ripened ovary. Okay. Now, let me go up a little bit, and please pardon me. I'd like to come. Oh, no. Where did we discuss the parts of the flower? In a different chapter, right? Just one moment, people. Yeah, let me just go to this part. I want that part of the flower. Yes, here. Can everyone see this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is the diagram for parts of the flower, the morphology of the flower. So you see this here. Let me take a cursor. Yes. So this part here, this black part that I have labeled, everyone can see my cursor. This is ovary, right? And I told you around ovary, there are other types of tissues as well. So in this region, which is the base of the flower, it's not only ovary, because ovary has ovules inside, which becomes the future seeds. Ovary becomes the future fruit. But you see, we also have thalamus here, just outer to the ovary, like surrounding the ovary is a tissue called thalamus. Everyone can see that?
Yes, sir.
And below the ovary, just at the junction here, we have receptacle, a tissue called pedicel or peduncle. So these are different type of tissues which are around the ovary. Okay? Is it? Do you understand, everyone? Oh, sorry. Yes. So I cannot go back. I have to restart it again. Sorry, everyone. Just give me one moment. But please keep discussing. So you see that there are different tissues around, right? So around the ovary, there are many other tissues. So if ovary gets ripened, that's called a fruit, true fruit. And in nature, there is only two things, either a true fruit or a false fruit. A false fruit is anything that gets ripened except for the ovary. Is it clear? And what can get ripened? Either it can be thalamus. So ovary did not get ripened. Instead, thalamus started swelling after fertilization, and that became the fruit. So if thalamus is becoming the edible part of the fruit, that fruit is called a false fruit. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, yes, I got it. Now I'll share it just one moment. Share the screen. Yeah, you all can see we are back on the same thing. Yes. So if ovary gets ripened, it is a true fruit or a fruit, anything apart from ovary. So write down, if any other tissue apart from ovary gets ripened, then the fruit produced is known as false fruit. Then the fruit produced is known as false fruit. Okay, everyone? Now, all the vegetables are actually fruits. You know that? Yes or
Yeah,
no?
but they're false fruits.
No, they are true fruits. They are the fruits. All the fruits which we call fruits, most of the fruits which we call fruits, maybe our favorite ones, are false fruits. For example, apple. Apple is a very common fruit, which is not a fruit. It is a false fruit. Strawberry is a false fruit. Jackfruit is a false fruit. Whereas cucumber, bottle gourd, all the gourds.
Why do we call them fruits?
Yeah, why do we call them fruits? Because that's where biology is different from what we do in our daily life. So the concept of something being a fruit is that ovary gets ripened. Okay. In case of apple, let me draw an apple for you and you will understand. So let me draw a half sliced apple. So we have a stalk and probably this is the shape of an apple, right? It's cut from the half. You will see that in an apple, when you must be cutting apples a lot for like guests that who come home, right? So you always remove this one part from the center, right?
Yes, sir.
Because it contains seeds. Am I right?
Yes.
And this part is very hard. Like you cannot chew it. It's not good to eat. We only eat this pulpy part, right?
Yeah.
In apple, everyone? Because
Yes.
this part is thalamus. We are eating a thalamus tissue which has ripened. Where is the ovary? This is the ovary. Ovary did not get ripened in apple. So this is the ovary wall, which I am now marking with orange. So this is the ovarian wall, which should have got ripened normally to become fruit. But instead, the outer tissues after ovary, which are surrounding the ovary, they got ripened. And ovary stayed as it is. So you are actually taking out the whole ovary with seeds inside, which were ovules at one time. And you are throwing it away. So we take this part and we eat this part, right? So this is a false fruit. You understand? Because it is. Yes, please ask. Any
Sir,
question?
the apple seed contains something. What is that?
Yeah, apple seeds does not contain that, but I understood what you are asking.
No,
Lot
like,
of apple seeds, cyanide you are talking about, right? Poison? Yes. A lot of apple seeds, but a lot. A lot means a lot, not what you see in movies or in films that you got 1 to 10 kgs of apple and collected their seeds and grinded the seed and it became a toxic. No. You need probably around 40-50 kgs of apple to make less than a gram of poison from those seeds. So apple seeds contains an active ingredient which is cyanide. So it's not in the form of cyanide in apples. Otherwise, we all would have died, whoever would have bitten any apple seed. But it is so less in quantity that I told you, like even to make in milligrams, you need a truck full of apples. Is it okay? Do you understand?
Yes, sir. So I saw this post in which it said like if you chew and eat 200 apple seeds, then you will die.
No, nothing will happen.
Right?
Nothing
like
will happen. There is also a movie I think known as Mom. It's an Indian actress. Sri Devi is there. She actually makes poison from apple seeds. But the fault in that is it's technically not correct. It's correct that you can do that, but you need truckload of apple to make significant amount of poison, which is enough to kill a human. To kill a human, the poison should have two features. Either it should be very, very potent in less quantity, or it should be meeting the requirements of body. So everything works with respect to body weight. You know, how are dosages of drugs given to kids and adults? You will be becoming doctors, many of you. So we say that 600 mg of something is for adults, but for kids, we lower the dose, right?
Yeah.
Because all the drugs are normalized with the body weight. Okay. So the amount of poison we need to kill a human, which can be made from apple seeds, you need a lot of apples. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Now write down a very quick thing. So make a division in between and write true fruits and false fruits. And I'll be dictating you things. True fruit, in true fruit, all the tissues, all the edible tissues are derived from the ovary. Sorry, from the ripened ovary. All the edible tissues are derived from ripened ovary. And true fruits are also known as, in science, like in biology, they write it as eucarp. The word carp comes from carpillary. Carpillary is the female part, okay, gynoecium. And U stands for true. You can write it down. Wherever the word U comes, it means true. Eubacteria, eukaryotes, remember? True nucleus. Eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Eukaryotes have a true nucleus, well-defined nucleus. Eubacteria is true bacteria. So eucarp is a true carpillary, true ovary. So it's also known as true fruit. And false fruit, write down In false fruits, edible part is derived from other tissues like thalamus and receptacle. Thalamus and receptacle. Okay. And a false fruit, what it will be called biologically, the name? If it is eucarp, what will be a false fruit? What is the word used for false? Pseudo.
Pseudo. Okay.
Yes, pseudocarp. So they are called pseudocarps. Okay. Now write down some things that are important for entrances. So this is for true fruit. The examples are always asked in entrances. And so true fruits examples are mango, true fruit, maize. We never consider maize as a fruit, but it is. You know that maize, we call it bhutta, corn.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Then grapes. These all are true fruits. They don't ask about true fruits much. They always ask about false fruits. So in false fruits, let's write it like this. The false fruits which developed from peduncle. Remember, peduncle was one structure in flower.
Yes, sir.
So your cashew nuts are false fruits. They are developed from peduncle. So the cashew that you eat is the peduncle tissue. It's not the ovary. And then other false fruit, the most common false fruits that we know they arise from thalamus. This is very common and has been asked multiple times. So in this comes apple and what did I all tell you?
Strawberry.
Gourds.
Sir, strawberry.
Pear.
Sorry?
Strawberry.
Pear. Yes. Pear. Strawberry. Yes, strawberry is also a false fruit, right? Strawberry. Where are the seeds located on a strawberry? Anyone can tell me?
On the skin.
On the outer part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are present in small, like pimple-like thing. And there's one more example that was asked. Yes, gourds and cucumber. So, cucumber is also a false fruit. When you cut a cucumber, what do you see inside? Lines of ovules, right? Seeds.
Yeah.
lined up, right? And inside the cucumber, if you cut a proper cucumber, you will see. So this is how a cucumber looks like. And you will see that inside there is a whole region that can just be taken out as it is. Sometimes it's very loose and can be taken out also, especially in the Indian breeds or Indian varieties of cucumber. So this part can come out with seeds. It's squishy. That is the ovary. And we then eat the thalamus. Is it clear? Just like apple.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And one more thing. Yes, jackfruit, write down. Jackfruit and pineapple, they developed from inflorescence. Yes. You know what is an inflorescence? The whole flower, a group of flowers together is called an inflorescence. Like mango does not have one single flower. Anyone has seen mango flowering? Mango tree flowering before the fruiting?
Yes, I have seen mango flowers.
They are like bushy flowers, right?
Yes.
Small present in a bundle, lot of them together. That is called inflorescence. So sometimes this whole inflorescence gets ripened up and become a tissue. And from inflorescence, the fruits which are formed is your jackfruit and pineapple. So these are the examples that have come in entrances. Just remember this, they are important ones. Okay, false fruits, true fruits is done. Some bit that is left we will discuss in tomorrow's class before we begin sexual reproduction. And 8 already. So this is where I declare this class. So Matthew, Samira, I think Samson, you won't be able to stay back, or is he already gone? Okay, so apart from Matthew and Samira, others can leave if you do not have any questions. So I finished the class here. Matthew and Samira, you stay back for some backup.
Sure, sir.
Okay, Fatima, Alia, any doubts you have? Fatima, Munir? No? Okay, then see you tomorrow in the class. Yes, bye. I'm prepared for the sexual reproduction and read what I gave you as homework. Okay. Okay, cool. So Matthew and Samira, I hope you did understood the things that I taught today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No problem, right?
No problem.
So let me use the same thing and we'll go from the beginning, and you will keep noting certain things so that at least this part, the sexual reproduction part, we all are at the same page. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this 1 hour I'll be with you. Okay. Can we just do one thing? Let's take a quick water break, just 2 minutes before I begin with you. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay. Just grab water for myself. You can also go and get some sip. Okay. Hello, Matthew and Samira, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good. Okay, so this is going to be the backup, and I will go through what we have done in this chapter, and you keep noting down certain things. So first I'll discuss things with you and I'll give you time to note down. Okay.
All
Things
right.
which are easy, you can just keep noting along the way. And so let me go a little back because this is okay. Or let me, so before this, before we started with the stages of sexual reproduction, let me just tell you, you both can go to the NCERT and look at the parts, the morphological parts of a flower. Okay. So that thing, I think I'm leaving up to you as a homework. You just have to go and look at the different parts. And then you know from there that what are the male parts. The male parts are called stamen. and the female parts are called carpel. About that, we will have another backup class, okay? We will go in a reverse order because since I am going in a forward order in the normal classes, for your backups, we'll go backwards, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So today we finished sexual reproduction in angiosperms, the stages of it. And so this is where we began this. So the sexual reproduction in angiosperms have 3 stages. First is pollination. Now, what is pollination? Pollination is the transferring of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Now, when I say from the anther to the stigma, there are 2 things here. There are some flowers which produce both the parts in the same flower. You know, they are called bisexual flowers. Okay. Yes.
Yes, yes.
And then there are monosexual flowers, which has either the male structure in one flower or female structure in one flower. Now, there are also plants. So most of the time when there are monosexual flowers, the plant itself is monosexual or dioecious. So because I'm discussing this with you, let me use this concept here. Remember that the word bisexual, when it is used, it means that there are 2 sexes. Then with bisexual, we use monooecious. They are similar concepts. The word bisexual is for sex. There are 2 sexes in nature, opposite sexes, male and female in higher organisms. The word oecious is used for body. Okay. So bisexuals or monooecious, which means a single body. So if something is having both the sexes in a single body, we call it bisexual and monooecious. Is it clear, Matthew?
Yes, sir.
If something is monosexual, a flower or an organism, then it is always dioecious, which means that the species has 2 bodies to incorporate 2 different sexes. So in one body, only one sex is present, like humans. Humans are dioecious. So every body is monosexual normally. Okay. There are disorders in which a human can have both male and female reproductive organs inside the body, but that is a disorder, developmental disorder, about which we will discuss in sexual reproduction that we are going to start tomorrow, the human reproduction. But the general rule is bisexual means both sexes present in the same body. It's bisexual monoecious and monosexual dioecious. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
The concept we use for plants. Now, similarly, if it is a bisexual flower, it has both the organs, male and female, then the pollination can be of different types depending on what kind of flower is present on that plant. Now, you understood pollination, and you also understood that there are some agents that have to do this pollination process, and they are called pollinators. And pollinators could be abiotic, which is non-living, or biotic, which is living. So abiotic are wind and water, and biotic are bee, butterflies, snakes, birds, etc. Snakes are also pollinators for some biggest flowers that we have. You know, the biggest flower is called Rafflesia. Anyone has heard of Rafflesia?
No.
If you go and figure it out, it's also known as, it's called a corpse flower. Corpse means a dead body because it stinks. It's not a very sweet smelling flower, and it's a very big flower. It's up to 3 feet. So the diameter of that flower could be 3 feet. And they are so big that big organisms like snakes and some mammals live in that flower or under that flower, use that flower as a shelter. So when they are moving in, out and around, they actually pollinate these flowers. Okay. So just to put in context how snakes can be pollinators as well. So this thing is clear. There's the simple and this concept.
Yes, sir.
Now let's see how pollination can happen. What could be different types? So there are 3 scenarios on the basis of type of flower. So look here, I'll use different. So this is, let's say this, what I have drawn here is a plant. On a plant, there is a flower which I have named as flower A. And this flower is a bisexual flower. It has both. So this is the symbol for female, you know it. This is the symbol for male, right?
Yes.
So it has both female and male structure. So it is a bisexual flower. Now, first possibility, first scenario is that the male structures, the stamen, the anther of the same flower fertilize or pollinates the stigma of the same flower. Yes, the first, and this is called autogamy, complete pure autogamy or self-pollination. This you have studied in your lower class as well, right? And these are some examples: sunflower, orchids, pea, commelina. They are all autogamous. They do self-pollination. Now it is still sexual because two different gametes are produced and two different gametes are fusing. And when they are fusing, there is a chance of recombination and there is a chance of genetic variation itself. Okay. So even though both the gametes are coming from the same body, when they are fusing and recombinating, they can make variations. Do you understand? So it is a sexual reproduction. The second scenario is where there are two flowers on the same plant. Okay. And the anther of one flower pollinates the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant. Is it clear? Now it is not within the flower, it is between the flower, but within the same plant. So if it is within the same flower, it is autogamy. If it is between two flowers, but within the same plant, it is geitonogamy. Is it clear, Matthew and Samara?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Examples are cucurbits, maize, and like maize or corn, whatever you call it. They are the most common examples. So between two flowers, but within the same plant. And the third one is where there are two different plants, plant 1 and plant 2. And the flower from one plant fertilizes the flower on another plant. So this is between two different plants. So we don't have to care about flower now. If it is two different plants altogether, of course, it is going to be two different flowers. So the three scenarios are clear to you on the basis of type of plant and type of flowers?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Okay, very good. Now, if any kind of question comes, many question comes on this, that if there is a dioecious plant, then what will happen? Autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy, or what will not happen? So these kind of questions will come. Okay. So if a plant is dioecious means it is monosexual, right?
Yes.
Dioecious means there are two different bodies to incorporate two different sexual structures. So dioecious plants, can they ever undergo self-pollination?
No.
No, they can never undergo self-pollination because plant A of that species will only have anther, 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 anther. All the flowers will have anther. And the other plant, which will be the female plant, will have all the, will have all the pistil, pistil, pistil. Is it clear?
Yes.
So all they have to do is cross-pollination. They can never have self-pollination and they can also never have geitonogamy, which is between two flowers within the same plant. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Unless and until, but there was another question in entrance which says that there is a monosexual flower species. Okay. Now listen to the question carefully. The flower is monosexual, but both male flower and female flower is present on the same plant. So now what is allowed and what is not? What is allowed? Geitonogamy is allowed?
Yes.
Xenogamy is allowed? Cross-pollination?
Yeah, it can still, yes.
Yes, xenogamy is always allowed. Yes? Autogamy is allowed?
No.
No. So now I ask you third question. In a region, there is a monosexual flower species and all the plants only contains stamen. So what is allowed and what is not allowed? Autogamy allowed? No chance.
No.
Geitonogamy allowed? No. You understand why? All are stamens only.
Yeah,
In all
so
the plants,
in the
all
same
are
plant,
stamen.
in the same plant, there's only stamens.
Yeah, they are all male. Like in a way, we can say that all the plants are males. So autogamy is not allowed, Xenogamy is not allowed, and Xenogamy is also not allowed. Because there is no female in the vicinity where the pollen can land, right?
Yes.
So the option will be none of the above, and you have to choose none of the above. So you understand what type of question comes from this concept? Both of you,
Yes.
Samira and Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So this was on the basis of type of plant and type of flowers. Now, on the basis of just the morphology of flowers. So there are two type of flowers. One that open. So as all flowers develop as a bud, right? Then the bud opens and becomes the flower, right?
Yes.
So open flowers are called chasmogamous flowers. Chasmogamy is open flowers. So plants which produce open flowers are called chasmogamous plants. And cleistogamy is closed flowers. So let me write it here for you. This is when we were discussing in class. I just like this. So cleistogamy is producing closed flowers. So there are many flowers. For example, pea. Pea is an example of cleistogamous flower. These flowers do not open; they always remain closed. So whatever is it, so anther and pistil both are inside, and the flower is closed. So in a cleistogamous flower, what is the only possibility that is allowed?
Autogamy.
Autogamy. Clearly, it will never allow Geitonogamy nor Xenogamy. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
But a chasmogamous flower, all are possible. So question comes, if you have to, so you see, entrances are not about asking you something that you do not know at all. It is about asking what you know already, but in a twisted manner. So there are many questions which says, so there is a chasmogamous dioecious plant, what will be allowed? So you understand? They're just putting too many words to make you think, and so that it takes more time of yours to solve that question. So the more you revise these things, the easier it will get. Okay?
Okay, sir.
So cleistogamy and chasmogamy is clear?
Yes, sir.
So this was all about pollination, the first stage. So I think this you should note down along with making this your own version of this 3 scenarios. Let me know when you are done. Take 2-3 minutes and do it. And then we'll go to the second stage, both of you. It's clear to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do it. Do it and let me know when you're done. The examples of xenogamy is written here: onion, papaya, and broccoli. Okay. These are the examples that have been asked. There are many flowers, so you can never remember all the examples. Most of the time, the question comes on the concept.
Okay, sir.
Pea is a very famous plant, you know, because in class 11th, pea was very important for Mendel. Mendel did all his genetics on pea plant. I hope you remember.
Yes, sir. Intense.
Pisum sativum, right? So the color of the pea plant, pea flower, was also one of the characters that Mendel studied. Either they are violet color flowers or white color flowers. and violet is dominant over white as a color. A good trick to understand and study biology is to keep making mind map, to remember a lot of things, you do not have to memorize it. You have to make mind maps, connect one thing to the other. Just like, that apple seed thing, because I know most of the time people have heard this somewhere or read this somewhere that apple seeds are poisonous, right?
Yes, sir. It's a kind of a misconception though.
Yes, because it's not poisonous, because I told you, lots and lots of apples and all their seeds needed, then you grind. That way you see everything has some or the other sort of toxicity, right?
Yes.
A lot of things that we eat, if we eat them in very large quantity, they are toxic to us. For that matter, yes, Matthew?
Yeah, it is said like too much of everything is not good. So.
Exactly. For that matter, I was about to tell you this only. For that matter, too much of oxygen in our cells will also break down everything, because we use oxygen to oxidize glucose, which is a sugar. We have other forms of carbohydrates in our cell, which are the structural units. If we get too much of oxygen, everything will just get oxidized.
Yes.
So with this, we can relate that one thing. Every time in hospitals, when they put oxygen mask, that is not pure oxygen. That is always diluted with helium or some other.
Yes, yeah. I think we learned that in chemistry.
Yes. Why do they dilute it with helium or other inert gases?
To stop the normally, like, there's also nitrogen with it. So so when there's nitrogen in that system, it like goes into your bloodstream, and then once you like remove the oxygen mask, it creates like bubbles, and those bubbles like stop your blood flow.
Actually earlier it was used to be nitrogen, and certain at different pressures, certain gases do not dissolve in the blood, so they start coming out as bubbles, and they are called gaseous emboli, and it's a big problem. If it gets stuck somewhere in your nerves or in your blood vessels, it can cause injury to that organ, like heart or liver or something, or kidneys.
Yes.
So they started using other inert gases like helium. But we always dilute. The concept is, my question is, why do we dilute oxygen? It is pure oxygen, and we need oxygen. Give pure oxygen, because if anyone inhales pure oxygen, the whole lining from the nasal cavity to the lungs will start getting oxidized. It's like burning without a fire.
Wow.
It's very simple. See, if I take a biscuit, let's say I took a glucose biscuit, okay? And I start burning it on fire. That glucose biscuit will burn vigorously because it has lots of energy that can burn, right? Wood, what is wood?
Yes.
Wood is all starch and cellulose, right? It burns as a fuel. Glucose also burns as a fuel. So when I'm burning that biscuit in fire outside the body, I'm doing the same thing process, which we chemically called combustion. The same thing when I'm doing it inside my body. So I'm eating the biscuit, digesting the biscuit, taking that glucose into the cell, bringing oxygen, and making that reaction happen in a less heated environment by the help of enzymes. And in chemistry, you all have read of biocatalysts or catalysts. Catalysts are those chemicals
speed up reaction.
Yes, they do not take part in the reaction themselves, but they speed up the reaction, or they make the reaction happen at lower temperature or lower pressure. So enzymes are in our body, which makes the combustion of glucose happen at 37 degrees Celsius, which is our body temperature. We are basically burning the biscuit inside our body. You understood?
Yes.
Yes. So it's the same thing. And we are producing energy. If you burn the biscuit outside, you will produce energy. Okay, done. So Myra, Matthew,
yes,
So let's go to the second stage. So after a successful pollination is done through any way, basically the pollen has reached the stigma, correct? Once it has reached the stigma, so this is the stigma and this is the way towards ovary. It will go down towards ovary. But the point is, the problem is, if it is a chasmogamous flower, it is an open flower, then the stigma is just a structure waiting for pollens. And in the air, there are lots and lots of pollens, and all these pollinators do not just go to one flower, they go to all different species, all different flowers. So all different type of pollens can land on a stigma, correct?
Yes.
Even those pollens which do not belong to the same species. Let's say if on a marigold stigma, a rose pollen landed. Now what will happen? Will the rose pollen fertilize the marigold stigma?
Not likely.
Yeah, it should not, because otherwise every other day we will be seeing hybrids, but we do not see it. And remember from junior classes, what is the definition of a species? Can anyone recall that? It's all connected. A species is a group of organisms which are capable of interbreed, like breeding and producing fertile offsprings. Remember?
Yes. So the
Yes.
species are always capable to continue their line.
Yes, because they can always breed, fertilize, because they have both the partners of the same species will always have same number of chromosomes. So a rose might have different number of chromosomes and a marigold might have a different number of chromosomes. So that's why when their pollen and ovules will meet, they will not be able to fertilize each other, probably because there is no compatibility between the two. Now this thing is decided here. So when pollens land on stigma, the first thing that happens is a pollen pistil interaction. It is a biochemical interaction, okay? So there are certain sugar molecules present as receptors on the surface of stigma, and there are the similar molecules present on the pollen grains wall surface. When both of them come in interaction, and it's like a lock and a key mechanism, right? So when proper lock will fit in the proper key, then the door will open. Yes?
Yes.
So that is called pollen pistil interaction, and it is important for species identification, so that the same species pollen is allowed to form a pollen tube, because pollen has just fallen on the top. Okay. Now to make you understand that, let's come here. This is a structure of a normal, just a representation of a pollen. So a pollen has an outer wall called exine. Okay. Exit, outer, exine. Inner, intine. Easy to remember?
Yes.
Outer, inner. Inner, there are two layers. Outer layer is exine, inner layer is intine. Now this outer layer, which is exine, is made up of this structure called sporopollenin. Okay. Sporopollenin is the major component in exine, the outermost structure. That's why pollen are very, very robust and indestructible in nature. This is where I said that plants are magnificent structures, because they ensured, see, if they're making fragile pollens like human sperms are very, very fragile gametes. You know that?
Yes, yes.
They can even get destroyed in an acidic environment. They can get destroyed in the dehydrated, hot environment. There will be no sperm production even if at the body temperature. That's why in humans, the testes are located in a different sac called scrotum outside the body wall, because making sperms require the temperature lower than the body temperature. And sperms just die like flies, like they're very easy to die. Even like, you know, if someone has a habit of using a laptop, keeping it on the lap all the time, then it's very, very harmful for the reproductive health of that male, because radiations, all sorts of like signals and radiations come out from a laptop, right? Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all these things. You understand?
Yes.
They may also affect the health of the sperms. Alcohol, smoking affects the health of the sperm, and they die. But we can afford to still propagate and flourish with those kind of gametes, because we are motile. We can find ways to, you know, transfer the sperm effectively into the female system through the process of sexual intercourse. Plants cannot do that, correct?
Yes.
And if they just throw pollens in the air, or they stick it to the honeybee's legs, honeybee can just sit anywhere. Like
there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee that they will survive, right?
Yes.
So for them to survive, it has to be very, very robust and structurally very strong. So plants chose sporopollenin. Sporopollenin is one of the most inert biological polymers. It is so inert that it is called nearly indestructible. You cannot destruct or destroy a sporopollenin polymer even if you put it in acid. It's so indestructible. So Xine is made up of sporopollenin. You would like to write it down? Okay, let me first just explain this, then you write everything together. So inside a pollen, there are two types of cells, a generative cell and a vegetative cell. Okay, two cells are there in one pollen. Now this vegetative cell is responsible for giving rise to pollen tube. Look here. In a mature pollen grain, there is a generative cell and a vegetative cell. Both are haploid. It forms the pollen tube. Okay. After the pollen pistil interaction is done, the pollen tube is formed by the vegetative cell. When it is formed, just before that, the generative cell divides mitotically into two male nuclei. So remember, there is only one nucleus here and one nucleus here. But before this starts, just moments before this starts forming a tube, the generative cell divides and there is a mitotic division. No mitosis, mitotic. No meiosis, only mitosis. So they mitotically divide to form two male nuclei, which are called male gamete. Is it clear? Both of you?
Yes.
And inside a pollen tube, it looks like this. So this is a pollen, this is a growing pollen tube. So what leads is the vegetative nucleus. It is foremost. And behind that, there are two male nuclei following it. So this is like a protector or like a guardian who's telling the kids to, okay, follow me. Let me take you to the place where you need to go. Okay. So this is vegetative. Now a question has come in entrance. It makes it tricky. So the question was, the two leading nuclei in a pollen tube are. Now everyone gets confused. No, there should be three nuclei in a pollen tube, correct? Two male nuclei and one vegetative nucleus. So total nuclei in a pollen tube becomes 3. But the question asks the two leading nuclei. So which will be the two leading nuclei? One vegetative nucleus and one male nuclei. Because these two are leading, no? If I ask the first leading nuclei, then the answer will be vegetative
nucleus.
The last nuclei in a pollen tube, then it will be a male nuclei. And if I ask the two leading nuclei, then it will be one vegetative and one male nuclei. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So just write this. Whatever you need to write down, please do that. Okay, one more thing. Okay, just stop. I forgot to tell you one thing. And you also did not ask. So I told you that Xine is nearly indestructible, right? And it is the outermost layer. So if it is indestructible, how will the pollen tube come out? Yes or no?
Can it break internally?
It can never break. If this polymer can break by enzymes or by anything, then it is not destructible, no?
Yes.
Then it cannot be called as inert. So this is true that Xine cannot break and it will never break, and nothing on stigma, no enzyme present on stigma can break Xine or sporopollenin. That's why in nature, in a pollen tube, there are many regions, the areas where this Xine is absent. And this entine is on the direct contact with the outside world. Is it clear? And these regions are called germ pore. Okay. So pollen tube.
So there is no sporopollenin in the germ pore.
No. Yes.
Okay.
But this region is very small. So it's like, have you seen warriors wearing a helmet?
Yeah,
earlier?
Yeah.
So everything is covered, but they leave this space for the eyes, no?
Yes.
Because they have to, otherwise how they will see what is happening? But now if you tell me that, someone can just aim at the eyes and put a arrow there and it gets killed, then yes, that's a possibility. but it is covering the rest 98% of the face. Only 2% risk and it has to be taken, right?
Mm-hmm.
But is it not a protection still? It is a protection, right?
It is still a protection.
Yes.
But...
So similarly, Xine is also a protection and it works. But these germ pores are very, very small and they are not less, they are less than 2 to 3% of the total surface area. So the 97% of the surface area is protected. And pollen tube always come out from the germ pore, nowhere else, because that is the only place where sporopollenin is absent. Okay, now write down. Just in your words, write down things, draw these things, write it as bullets. Any doubt, Samira or Matthew?
No.
Sir, how do you define pollen pistil interaction?
Yes, write down. The pollen pistil interaction is the first process
Yes, sir.
which includes biochemical interaction, between the pollen wall and the stigma surface. Between the pollen wall and the stigma surface. This interaction ensures the identification. This interaction ensures the identification of same species.
Yes, sir.
Of the pollen. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yep. So the things that you have to remember for exams is that vegetative nucleus gives rise to pollen tube and generative cell divides mitotically to make 2 male nuclei. So the question, there is another question which was asked in, I think it was Ames paper. In a mature pollen tube or in a germinating pollen tube, how many total nuclei are there? It's very easy. There are total 3 nuclei. Okay, 2 male nuclei and 1 vegetative nuclei. Let me know when you are done, then we'll move forward.
Done, sir.
Wait, sir.
And I just remembered now. So this hype that has been created around apple, you know, that they are poisonous seeds. Actually, it's not special to apples. Actually, you know, all the fruits that belong to apple, like related, like many cherries and also pear. So pear and many cherries also have their seeds which contain this chemical, which is it's a mixture of cyanide and a sugar. So it's not pure cyanide, but it's a cyanide fused with a sugar. I think it's called something like amygdalin. I don't remember the name exactly. It's amygdalin or something, the name of the exact chemical which is present in apple and pear seeds, which is a cyanide derivative. Yeah. But I don't know why this myth just is prevalent about apples and not about pear or cherries.
Yes, sir. Done.
Done, Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So this is clear. The pollen pistil interaction is clear. Pollen grain, how it looks, what is the structure, what is inside, how the male nuclei is formed is clear. And
Yes,
in a germinating pollen tube, what follows what is clear. Now, ultimately, that pollen tube has to go all the way down and reach the ovary. Okay, this is where comes this part. So before I go to the upper part, I will first make you understand this part. So this is called the embryo sac. Inside the ovary are the ovules, right, which will become seeds. And ovules contains these embryo sac. Now the word sac means sac is bag-like structure, right? Scrotal sac is also a sac. Bag is also a sac. In our lungs, we have alveoli, which are called air sac. They contain air in it. So embryo sac, it contains the embryo. Eventually, when embryo will be formed, it will be inside this sac. In an angiosperm, so in angiosperms, it is very interesting, and this has also been asked in boards, so it is important. This was the question that draw with the help of a diagram, explain the 7-celled and 8-nucleated structure of the embryo sac in angiosperms. So in angiosperms, the embryo sac has total 7 cells and 8 nucleus. Now, if there are 7 kids and you have to distribute 8 apples and you cannot cut or any apple, then it's clear that one kid is going to have 2 apples, right?
Yeah.
The same is with this. So there are 7 cells which are allowed in this sac, but 8 nucleus has to be there. So this is how the structure looks. So it's an oval structure, okay? And this is a growing pollen tube, this here. Now the pollen tube is coming. I have not drawn the vegetative nucleus now because it's not of our use. I have only drawn 2 male nuclei. Can you see 1 and 2? Nuclei?
Yeah.
These are 2 male nuclei. Vegetative nucleus is somewhere here. I have not drawn it. So this is where it comes. So it comes from the top, and it could easily enter from here, but it never enters from here, from the top, the shortcut. No, it goes all the way and enters from the bottom, okay, into the embryo sac, this pollen tube. So the end from where it does not enters is called chalazal end, okay, chalazal end of the embryo sac. And the end from where it enters is called micropilar end. Remember, just an hour ago I told you about hilum. It's a pore-like structure. It's a pore which is present on the micropilar end of the seed.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is that micropilar end. Now it is called micropilar because the word micro is used for male. Pollens are called microspores because they are small. And ovules are called macrospores. Okay. Write it down somewhere and I'll remove it from here. Pollens are called microspores and ovules are called macrospores. Just the name. Okay. The tissue from which they are synthesized or produced are called microsporangium and macrosporangium. Okay. Make sense? Easy to understand?
Yes, sir.
Pollens always are smaller than the ovule. Similarly is true for humans. In human, the sperms are very, very small as compared to ovum. You know, very small. So the sperm is called a microgamete because it's smaller. And the ovum is called a macrogamete. Okay?
Okay, sir.
And the organisms which have 2 different types of gametes, very, very distinctly different in shape and size and morphology, are called heterogametic. Again, heterogeneous mixture, remember? Homogeneous mixture, chemistry, class 9.
Yeah, multiple substances.
If it is sugar in water, it is a homogeneous mixture because sugar dissolves in water and does not leave different regions. Everything is same, right?
Yes.
But if you try to dissolve sand in water, it will not get dissolved.
Yes, we'll say separate.
It will just sediment after some time. So that is called heterogeneous mixture. Or oil in water, it will never mix. But milk in water will get mixed, right? Remove the oil part. Yeah. So heterogametic is like heterogeneous mixture. Heterogametic means two different types of gametes. Heterogametic. Homogametic organisms are those organisms in which both the gamete looks same. If you look under the microscope, you will not be able to tell whether it is a male gamete or a female gamete just by looking at it. So those are called homogametic. Okay, clear?
Okay, sir.
The concept. Would you like to write this down? Write down.
Yes.
Write down heterogametic and homogametic. In heterogametic, write down distinctly different morphology of gametes. Distinctly different morphology of gametes. And homogametic, similar gametes. Now coming back here, this end is called micropylar end because this is from where the micro nucleus enters. Okay, the pollen nucleus enters. Okay, the word micro is used here. Will you remember it? Say yes or no. Is it clear? Okay. Now the first thing that this pollen tube encounters is the filiform apparatus. It is not a cell. It is just some tissues present which guides the pollen towards the egg cell. So towards the micropylar end, there are three cells, two synergid cells. Okay. And behind the two synergid cells, like they are like the body cards, behind the two synergid cells is one egg cell. Now egg cell is haploid, but synergid cells are diploid. Okay. And this is the egg cell for which these male nuclei are traveling so much. But there are two male nuclei, right? And only one egg cell. So what will happen? One male nuclei will fuse with one egg cell and make a zygote. Okay. Where did it go? This thing, double fertilization event. One male nuclei will fuse with one egg cell and make a zygote, embryo, and seed, about which we have studied already. Okay. And this other male nuclei, the second one, will fuse with this polar nuclei. So 1, 2, 3 cells are this, two synergid, one egg cell. Then there are three cells on the chelazal end, which are called antipodal cells. Okay. How many total cells? 6 cells and 6 nuclei are done. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, one cell is left with two nucleus, and that is this bigger cell. The central cell is the largest cell of the embryo sac. It is very big. It is in the center, and it has two nucleus inside it. That's how the structure becomes 7-celled and 8 nucleated. And the second male nuclei goes and fuses with the polar nuclei, giving rise to endosperm. Okay, 3N structure. And because it was the largest cell, that is why endosperm constitutes the major portion of a seed. Okay, everything is clear?
Yes, yes, sir. Now understood.
Now everything is clear?
Yes, yes.
Very good. So this is about the embryo sac. Okay, and this is where fertilization. So the question in entrance board has come: what is double fertilization event? What is triple fusion? So the second fertilization event, which is male nucleus fertilizing with two polar nuclei, is called triple fusion because there are in total 3 nuclei fusing together to make a 3N endosperm, triploid. This is why it was triploid. Okay, clear everyone? Both of you,
Yes, sir.
Sumaira, Matthew? Sumaira?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now please write it down. Write down this double fertilization event. Then you have to draw this also. Let me know when you are done with double fertilization. I will go down.
Done, sir.
Done. Samira?
1 minute, sir.
Yes.
Done, sir.
Done. Okay. Now please make this thing. This is see here I have shown you the micropylar end, microspore for pollen, macrospore for egg cell, and draw this 7-celled 8 nucleated structure. Because this comes as a diagram also in boards. You should know which cell is present where, which is which end. So antipodal cells, central cell, polar nuclei, egg cells, synergid cells, and filiform apparatus. If you have any question, you can keep asking also in the meanwhile. You're from Kerala, Matthew, right? Basically.
Yeah, I am from Kerala. Yeah.
Where from Kerala? Where and from Kerala?
I am from Kottayam. Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Bihar based. I'm from Bihar, but when I was in Mumbai doing my masters, like 3 of my very good friends and colleagues were from Kerala.
Oh, okay.
So I'm from Champaran in Bihar.
Oh, the place
Champaran is that historic.
Yeah. Satyagraha.
Yeah, the indigo plantation rebellions of the farmers started from Champaran.
Done, sir.
Done, Samira? Matthew? Done?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So this is where the second, so this is what I have already told you about Cleistogamy and Chasmogamy. I think in class we discussed it here. And the second stage was about formation of zygotes, which were formed here in the double fertilization. So second stage is formation of zygote and fertilization. Now after zygote is formed, the third stage, which we studied today, was formation of seed and fruit. So now can you correlate everything with today's class?
Yes.
All the 3 stages of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
In one line, right? As a story in your head.
Yeah.
So go back today and revise it. Okay. And tomorrow we'll have the class in the same manner. So I'll be starting in the main class, human reproduction, which is a sexual reproduction again in animals. And we will have the same kind of a backup for 3 of you. Okay. Where I will talk about asexual reproduction in plants and lower organisms. Okay. Basically the major part of the chapter 1. So this was chapter 2. So this way you will get backup and you will be on the same page from the, like after 2 classes, you will be on the same page with the batch.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So please do read NCERT for this topic, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. And I'm giving you both a homework, Samira and Matthew, to go and look at the morphology of flowering plant and get familiarized with the structures. What is stamen? What is pistil? We will discuss it in tomorrow's